The Trump administration accused New York Attorney General Letitia James of mortgage fraud. They've made a criminal referral to the Justice Department seeking federal prosecution. The Attorney General's office responded saying this: Attorney General James is focused every single day on protecting New Yorkers, especially as this administration weaponizes the federal government against the rule of law and the Constitution. She will not be intimidated by bullies, no matter who they are. Andrew Cherkasky joins me now. Is Trump playing his own form of lawfare in New York?
Well, I think they say people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
Right.
It's beyond ironic that the allegations that she's now facing stem from the exact same types of mortgage fraud or loan type fraud that Trump went through that incredible civil trial on, where he defended himself, and he said that those banks and those financial institutions that he dealt with had acknowledged and had their own fair opportunity to look into and do their research. The allegations against Letitia James are not quite as friendly to her, and they look quite damning. Now, the DOJ is going to start their investigation. That's going to take some time. I don't know how many resources they're going to put behind that, but if these allegations that are being put forth turn out to be true, she is going to be facing the same sort of bankruptcy and turning over of her assets to the state that Donald Trump had to through that trial.
Well, I've got a sort of a follow-on question for this. Do you remember the February meeting between Trump and Governor Hochul, New York Governor Hochul, over New York City's congestion tax? Well, the New York Post is reporting that Hochul threatened Trump over the measure. She referred to the appeal against his civil fraud case and told him, "I control the judges." Hochul is denying that report. But my question is Trump still subject to that $480 million penalty? How's that going to play out?
Well, that appeal has been going on forever at this point. It is well beyond the normal amount of time that the appeal courts look at a case like this, and he is incurring interest in the amount of over $100,000 a day for that bond that he had to put up while the court slowly goes through it. Now, the Governor Hochul piece of it is, as of right now, kind of a he said, she said type of situation where she's denying that she said these things, but they sound like things that could be said, where she's leveraging her powers in the state to try to gain some sort of power or advantage in the negotiations that she's got with the White House. All of that's going to play out. I don't see that being a criminal matter at this moment. It's more political infighting between them, but I wouldn't poke the bear, and that bear is Donald Trump.
But I want to know, is Donald Trump ever going to have to pay $480 million?
Well, we're waiting to see what the appeal court says. But that's just the first layer of appeal.
But as we wait, he's getting charged $100,000 a day in interest or something?
And if he wins, he can get that money essentially back. Not so much the interest, not so much fees. Ultimately, it could cost him over millions of dollars. Even if he wins, then he might have to sue, maybe get that money back. But this is an extraordinarily expensive venture for him, even if he should righteously win. It will have cost him dearly.
I think that $480 million penalty was one of the reasons he won the election.
Of course.
You know, because that wasn't right. Andrew, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.